In today's episode, I want to talk to you a little bit about why I think there's an interesting complexity around Hodinkee release of their latest limited edition with Longines. There's speculation that this is considered a copycat to Tudor's Black Bay Pro, but I believe it actually means something deeper, and let's jump into it today on The Watch Factor. Come join me. Hey YouTube, I'm your host Kurt Brown. This is The Watch Factor and you're in the news. I was doing a little bit of research and looking at the most interesting release to come out of Longines this year, which is this limited edition of the Hodinkee Longines, the Zulu GMT. There's been a lot of talk that's starting to speculate across YouTube and other forms of conversations around watches about the fact that it looks exactly like the Tudor Black Bay Pro. And I believe it does, but the real question is, why would Longines go forward and do a copycat of a watch that's already existing? Now, here's what I want to bring forward, so let's dive in. First and foremost, we've got to understand that Longines has had a tremendously successful year. Its brand covers a number of watch varieties, targeting a pretty wide market. We're talking about everything from collectors that are still very much into quartz, all the way to kind of our unique niche collectors that want watches that kind of tie back to like history. Think about like the A7 and some of the other watch models. But what I think is really cool and almost interesting about this release is the fact that it, to me, sets a target where I think 2024 is going to be about Longines challenging itself to compete with brands that otherwise you wouldn't think so. We've all kind of agreed historically in the past that if you were to rank where does Tudor fall against Longines, you would probably put Longines slightly below, maybe even further than that, against Tudor. But this release, to me, starts the conversation about why not? Why couldn't Longines go after Tudor pound for pound, watch by watch for the same market base? Now, historically, no one will argue that Tudor has made some amazing watches. They've been in existence since 1926, but they've always been touted as the affordable option to Rolex. Rolex today seen more as a luxury watch, even though the majority of their pieces also have a little bit of a tool functionality. They've been seen as the luxury of today's market, right? And at the price points that we see with Tudor coming in just shy of, let's say, sub $5,000, it's a great opportunity for Longines to plan of attack and say, hey, I can compete with your same target audience and potentially grab your consumers and more market share. So let's look at the comparison of the Black Bay Pro versus this limited edition Longines. Now, to start, I think it's fair to recognize that both of these brands have a long history within existence of the watch industry. And further than the watches, they have significant value when you think about their presence in the military across a number of decades. You've had Tudor with the Marine Nationale. You've had Longines with a number of successful watches touted towards aviation. But what I like about Longines' position to go after Tudor is the fact that they actually have a legitimate chance. If we look at the fact that Tudor was founded somewhere in the mid to late 1920s, say 1926, you've got Longines that was in existence since 1830, 1832. We're talking about almost 100 years more of existence than Tudor. Then you add the fact of looking at the watch, and when you dig into the details, you begin to see how Longines positioned itself as a more affordable option, and not just affordability in terms of pricing, but also in functionality. So let's look at some of the strategy played that I think actually touts to Longines' attempt to kind of go after Tudor in a way that is very crafty, but very pointed. I love the fact that they decided to go forward with a limited edition run. Instead of making it a part of their broader collection available to anyone, they decided to do a quick test of, let's say, 500 pieces. This is going to draw interest to coveted Longines collectors, but also it's a way to test and see, is the market really there for where we believe we want to plan our next level of competition, if you will. By choosing Hodinkee, which, as everyone knows, Hodinkee has had great success in collaboration with Longines in the past, you're targeting a broader audience and a little bit more of a more select audience based off of the type of demographics that Hodinkee grabs. So if this is one of the models that sells out, which Hodinkee is known to sell out just about every single limited edition that they choose to launch, this also indicates that you have momentum to go after them in 2024. Now, what's also interesting is that when you put the two watches together, they look extremely similar. I wouldn't go so far as to call them a copycat, because the details, when you begin to really drill in, indicate that there is a difference. The question is it different enough to make a potential buyer opt for Longines versus the other? And the first thing that you know is the bezel. They have a 24-hour scale that's applied to them. It's applied also in black, which looks very much the same. But what you don't know is that when you look at the Longines, it's actually a rotating bezel, creating additional features and functionality for the consumer of the Longines model. If you look at the outer edge of the bezel, you also know that it's what we consider coin edge, which creates additional grip and usability for that watch when you're trying to set that time. When you look at the dial, both dials continue to be a very muted kind of black, flat black, but in this collaboration, Longines removed a lot of the additional writing to create a very similar profile and look like that of the Tudor Black Bay Pro. You don't see the Longines hourglass marker. You also don't see the stars, which reflect in previous Zulu time watches. A very clean dial. The other unique thing that I think is very interesting is the position of the date window. We've seen historical Zulu time watches where the date window is positioned at 6, whereas this one is positioned at 3. Very similar to what you find in the Tudor Black Bay Pro. Now, why do all of this? If we're going to go after the competition and we want to go pound for pound, feature for feature, I want to make it as similar as possible so that you can see how we took the additional extra steps to create a more affordable and more functional alternative option. I love also the fact that in the price point, the Zulu time comes in a few $100s less than the Tudor Black Bay Pro. Now, I will give points to Tudor Black Bay's Pro bracelet. At the end of the day, that fit and finish, that look just looks flawless. And I think Longines could have done a little bit more here, but there's enough to draw an attention and ask yourself as a collector, do I want maybe a limited edition run, something a little bit priced lower than what Tudor has, and move forward? Again, this is not about the fact that it's solely a limited edition. It's about the fact that we're playing in the space of affordability, where we have collectors that are willing to pay above $3,000, less than $5,000 for a great tool-based watch. So what does this all mean? I think what you're going to see is that Longines was going to continue throughout 2024, releasing models that try to position itself in a higher bracket than where it's been today. I think you're going to start to see a very careful, calculated approach to releasing models that give you an option. And if we're playing in the space of affordability, and that range being $3,000 to $5,000, there is a plethora of brands that Longines can go after that makes sense. What's also interesting is that the Zulu time does not have a historical relevance in the past. This is not a re-edition line that Longines has had in the past. So it's very much within their capabilities with such a broad level of researching and resources to begin kind of chipping at different brands based on certain models that they release and asking themselves, why can I not compete with the same consumer base to bring in more market share? The watch also is in titanium, which I think was just a great final add to this whole setup in the sense that titanium is one of the lightest metals possible. So you can only imagine that on the wrist, you barely notice that it's there. It just creates a very, very great package that makes a consumer ask themselves, do I spend a couple $100 more, not have the same functionality, but my watch says Tudor, or do I go with a limited edition watch, rotating bezel, potentially more legibility in the dial, it's titanium, it gives me an additional few hours of power reserve, pound for pound it's the same price, and it's also 39 millimeters. Why not? So I'm excited to see what they're going to do in the year ahead. I wouldn't doubt that this is going to be the last type of rollout that Longines is going to have, where we're going to have comparisons to take a look at. It's always a great thing to see competition in the marketplace. At the end of the day, it should help us consumers buy more great watches and enjoy the run while it goes on. I'd love to know what your thought is. Do you think you would prefer the limited edition over the 2-Day Black Bay Pro? Is it a fair competitor, or are they kind of out of their league? Drop me a comment. I'd love to hear what you've got to say and start up a little dialogue. For those that are new to the channel, always appreciate you subscribing. We're constantly trying to grow and add more interesting content, and I could really use and appreciate your subscription with that algorithm. Thank you so much, and you guys have a good night. I'll talk to you soon.